My name is April. I'm a person in long-term recovery. What that means to me is that using is not in my near future. God willing, of course.
Amen.
So I was born and raised in a small town called Smyrna, South Carolina. Some of y'all may know this area. My old stomping grounds was anywhere between Charlotte and Spartanburg. Today, my stomping grounds are anywhere the Lord puts my feet.
Amen.
I'm taking back territory for the kingdom today. There's just something about stomping around the same ground where I used to run around getting high, where I used to steal, lie, rob, cheat, and everything else that comes along with it. Being lost, afraid of everything and nothing at the same time. My journey with drugs and alcohol started when I was 13. Me and my friends would get about a half gallon of vodka, a six pack, and a pack of cigarettes every Friday, and this would only last us through the weekend. On Sunday, we would recover from the weekend and go back to school on Monday. We also eventually added boys to the mix. This went on for about a year. By the time I was 15, I was smoking pot, drinking, and having trouble with the law several times. I got caught with some weed, which almost got me in a lot of trouble. What I got caught with was 2 grams under a distribution charge. They were discussing sending me to DJJ at this time, and at this time in my life, I couldn't imagine my life without shampoo or conditioner or makeup. So my parents and I asked for arbitration, which included passing drug tests, community service, and participating in drug classes. I successfully completed it. When I was 15, I met a guy named Kyle. My life started to turn around a little bit. I became more responsible, started making better grades, we started planning a future. I decided I wanted to go into the medical field when I graduated high school. So I signed up for those classes. I was getting ready for that. We planned to get married and when I turned 18. He already had a pretty good job, making good money, so he would continue to work while I went to school to get a nursing degree. When I was 16, on February 11th, 2006, we was at my friend's house drinking. I ended up wasted as always. I remember he asked me for my keys to my car so he could go get his friend. I handed him the keys and kissed goodbye. That was the last time I saw him alive. I was startled awake at on my friend's couch at about 3 a.m. I went and woke my friend up. I said, "Where is Kyle?" She said he hasn't came back yet. I told her we needed to go look for him, something was wrong. I felt it in my spirit, I knew something was wrong. I drove to his parents' house, their car was there, I went inside, the door was standing wide open, all the lights were on, the TV was going. I grabbed their house phone and called his mom's cell. She told me where they were and said April, Kyle was gone. I couldn't really comprehend what she meant by that. I remember telling my friend where they were, and it was a place on Old Limestone Road in York. I told her what his mom had said. She looked at me, I looked at her, and then it hit me. I was in disbelief. I remember I just kept saying, no, this can't be real. When we pulled up, they were taking my car away on the rollback. I ran up to his mama, Jackie, and she said it again, except for this time, she said April Kyle's dead. I hit my knees. My parents were already there. I don't remember anything else about that night or the next few days. In the days to come, his grandmother, I remember she was praying. She was asking God for a sign that her barely 19-year-old grandson was okay and was in the presence of God. She asked for snow. It snowed that day while the sun was shining. The next year of my life was a blur. I'd stay out of school to go sit in the graveyard all day, talking to God, praying, asking why. I started to take Xanax every day, smoke a lot of weed. My parents didn't know what to do with me. My brother and I got a lot closer during this time. When I couldn't bear to go home anymore, I'd stay with my brother. He got a lot of calls from people asking him to come get me because I'd be belligerent, drunk, and wasted. Or couldn't walk, much less drive. On one of those nights, he came and picked me up, and I passed out in the back of his car. Him and his girlfriend drove around talking, and when I woke up, I was on a dirt road. Some of y'all might know it's the longest dirt road in South Carolina. It's called Barton Horton Dirt Road. He was asking her to marry him. We went back to his house. We were sitting around listening to music, and Leonard Skinner's song came on. It's called All I Can Do Is Write About It. He looked at me and pointed and said, "I want you to play this at my funeral." I took offense to this. I said, you're not leaving me anytime soon, don't say that. The last thing I remember saying to my brother was chili cheese fries. He was going to the Waffle House to get some food. I tried to go with him, but he wouldn't let me. The next morning, I woke up to his girlfriend, or fiance, saying, "Get up, we gotta go to the hospital. Stevie got in a wreck last night." That was all we knew. We got to the hospital. When we got to the hospital, my daddy was crying in the ICU waiting room. I hugged him, still not knowing what was going on. As I was hugging him, he said, he's not gonna make it. He kept repeating it over and over. After 2 days of being on life support, the decision was made to unhook the machines. Stevie passed away on August 22nd, 2007. I prayed for the strength to live and the courage to face today, and hope for my future every night and every day, and sometimes many times throughout the day. My alcohol use got a lot worse over the next few years. I racked up 4 DUIs and entered my first treatment center at the age of 20. I had no intention of being sober, but I knew I needed help of some kind, and I was looking for it in all the wrong places. I was a very angry person on the outside, but on the inside, I was lost, confused, and hopeless. It was very apparent to me that I was still alive for some purpose, unknown to me. I started driving when I was 15. I drove home more times than I could recall without remembering how I got there. I would often jump up in the morning and run to the window to see if my car was in the driveway and check for damage. I totaled 7 cars by the time I was 21. I was never hurt in any of the accidents and walked away without a scratch from all of them. I got married when I was 22 and gave birth to a healthy baby boy when I was 23 years old. His name is Jedediah. We filed for a divorce when he was 8 months old. This was one of the hardest things I've ever had to endure. Slowly, I started to put my life back together. I got my license back. I got a good job. Got another car. Then the custody battle began. It was horrible and very, very long and very nasty. My child's father and I couldn't have a civil conversation in person or on the phone. When it was finally over, we were both happy with the custody agreement. Shortly after this, I was introduced to meth. My ex-husband came on a Friday to pick up Jedediah for his weekend visitation. Monday rolled around and he didn't bring him back, and I didn't call or look for him. Days turned into months. Within 7 months, I had willingly handed over my child, my car, my job, my house, and my sanity for a needle and anything I could put in it. I can even remember it like a snapshot, frozen in time. I was pulling into my driveway before all this happened, saying, "I'm about to lose everything, and I'm still doing it. What's wrong with me?" Over the next few years, I was in jail a lot. A few months here, a few months there. I went to prison. I always felt some kind of relief when I'd go to jail. I knew I'd be there for a while every time I went. And each time I grew closer to God. I was offered rehab after prison, so I started to pray about it while I was in jail. I asked God to show me where to go. One day, as I was looking over a list of treatment centers that York County Detention Center had given me, all I could think about was the color green. And sure enough, there was a place on the list that was in Greenville. And I just had this knowing that I cannot explain. eventually I would go to Greenville. There was a volunteer at the jail that always wore the same green shirt every week. It said love on it. I asked her what the biblical meaning of the color green was. She said green symbolizes immortality, new growth, renewal, and resurrection. She said it's also my favorite color. This was my confirmation. I was going to Greenville. I didn't know it, but I wouldn't make it to Greenville for some time. After that, after I did a 28-day inpatient program, I went back out. 3 days after being released, it was my birthday, and I was in the hospital with a very bad blood infection. And the doctors were talking about amputating my left arm if the antibiotic drip didn't start working fast. After being in the hospital for about 4 days, they agreed to release me because I begged for them to. I was supposed to go into surgery the following day so they could get the remaining infection off the bones of my wrist. I didn't go, and as you can see, I do still have my left arm.
All right.
Not because nothing I did, of course, but because God saw fit to save my life once again. Over the next year and a half, I was beaten physically, mentally, and spiritually. I felt as though I was losing my mind. A friend of a friend started messaging me on Facebook one day about this great treatment program that he was in. He told me all about the recovery center and how much it was helping him learn to live without the use of drugs and how he was getting closer to his higher power, which is God. This was a person I'd never met before, yet he encouraged me every day to make that first step. When he told me it was in Greenville, I immediately understood that was where I was going. This was a person who had no clue who I was. I believed God placed him in my path. This was a sign to me that it was time to make a change. Shortly after, I was arrested again for probation violation. This time was different. I was at peace, and I told my PO about the recovery center. And for the first time, I longed for change. I was only in jail for about a month this time, and was released to go to the recovery center in Greenville. And for the first time, I was excited to go. There was tons of people along my path that fought with me every day, day in and day out. After 6 months of sobriety, I relapsed. It didn't take me long to find out that this was a path that I could no longer stay on. In the 2 weeks of being back out on the streets again, I was raved while I was nearly unconscious after taking suppressed pills. I called the recovery center in Greenville, and one of the staff traveled an hour and a half to come pick me up. My PO called me a few days later to check on me, and for the first time I told her the truth. She asked me to pack my stuff and go back to my parents' house and finish detoxing, and to find myself another treatment center to go to and report 2 weeks later. So whenever then I went back home, I think I slept for the first few days, and on the morning that I did wake up, I remember that the sun was shining. I was sleeping in my mom's bed for whatever reason. And my son was there. I could hear him in the living room playing, and I started to cry because everything was perfect, almost perfect, and yet I didn't want to be alive. So when I finally reported to my PO, she agreed to, where she checked out the next treatment center that I found in Greenville, which was definitely what I needed. It was a lot more stricter. It was a women's program. So I stayed there for about 3.5 months. And then I went to an Oxford house after that in Greenville. I think, somewhere along the line, before I went back to Greenville, I ended up, getting on medicated assisted treatment. And then, like I said, I went to the Oxford House, and I stayed there for about 8 months. Everything was going good. I was very involved in church. I had a real relationship with Jesus. Everything was going good. My parents asked me if I would move back home. So I moved back home, and I had no desire to use. I started to make connections in my hometown, different people that was in church, at Kingdom. That was the first church that I went to. After I came back home, and I stayed there for a very long time. I actually started working for the same volunteer that I was talking about earlier, who I asked, what the color green meant, in biblical terms. I worked for her for about a year, and she's still my mentor. She's my best friend. I talk to her before I do anything. She's taught me a lot about who God is, about who God says I am. Without her, I don't know where I would be.
Yeah.
Just really, through her obedience and coming into that jail, saved my life, really. And she asked me, she said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Here I am, 32 years or 30 years old at the time, and I was like, I think I definitely want to help people. I want to help people that's struggling with addiction. So we started looking for places, and she hooked me up with the WIOA program through SC Works, and a few months later I had a job at a York County agency for drug and alcohol abuse. Today I'm a peer support specialist. I get to help people every day.
Amen.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. There's a lot of bad things that happen there, but there's also a ton of good things that happen there. And I choose to focus on, the good things. Because I know that, I went through the same program that I work for, same treatment center. And, I didn't get it right off the rip, but it definitely planted a seed. And I believe that every treatment center, every person that I ran into, God placed a lot of people along the way that kept me alive. And also today, me and my ex, we have a great relationship. We're almost best friends. He comes to my house, I come to his house. We co-parent. We're it's almost weird. You know what I'm saying? I have a great relationship with my son today. I still wake up sometimes and wonder, how did I get here? How in the world did this happen? And I know that, if it wasn't for God, I would not be here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be standing here. And I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity to come here and to see y'all and tell y'all my story. And that's all I got.
Right.